disturbing me if you can't hear me. Or even if you go like this, then I might notice you. I might not in that moment, but especially when I do the meditations, I don't know why that is yet, and maybe it won't happen this time, but I tend to, when I guide meditations, my voice gets softer. So since there's not that many of us, there's plenty of room up front. The other thing I want to say is that I know that when, oh yeah, and how sorry has people moved, if you don't mind coming over one, like I can't see you that well, or, oh, that's perfect, yeah, perfect. One of the things, I am a yoga teacher, but I also been going to yoga classes, and I remember when I would go to yoga class and all of a sudden I would see a sub, and it would be this slight disappointment, like, oh, my favorite teacher isn't there, and oh, does it need to be on? Yeah, right, let's turn it on. Anyway, I noticed that when I would go into the class, not necessarily expecting that teacher to be the same as the teacher that I went for, and just being present for what they had to offer, that I would have a much better time. So I'm gonna ask you just be, notice what works for you, and anything I say, I believe that each person has the truth within. And if anything I say doesn't quite fit for you, you don't have to accept what I say. Just take what works, what you notice that resonates with the truth that you already know inside. And then some things might be like, could be true, but put on a shelf, and some things like, that doesn't quite fit for me. And you're welcome to just let that go. I'm here to talk about Peace Pilgrim. Soryu has asked us to speak about her book. And I volunteered, even though I generally, when we are asked to speak and when he's gone, I'm one of the ones that sort of hides out and says, oh no, everybody else go before I go until somebody's, But because I love Peace Pilgrim so much, I was actually the one that jumped up first. And I had a few moments right before where I was like, oh no. But it's actually really good because I read Peace Pilgrim when I was 22. And as I started rereading her, I realized what a huge effect she had on my life. And as I say that, I feel this amazing gratitude because my life could have easily gone very different. And, one of the things she says in chapter 2 is that, that you don't want to live life on the surface. You actually really want to face your life and face what we call problems head on. And that each problem is an opportunity. And I must have internalized that very deeply because I have not had an easy life. But when I did do that, when I actually, and I wouldn't start out seeing some problems, I would be like, oh my, we fight. I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why, this shouldn't be happening to me. This is horrible, this is bad. But when I began to look at it like, okay, what is this teaching me? What am I supposed to learn here? And I began to open up to that, like she did. Then there was amazing growth. That there's something here that I don't understand yet. And it took me sometimes very long, but a certain receptivity, a certain willingness to be broken open. Because some of those problems would, when I was resisting them, there would be so much pain, like to the point of not wanting to live sometimes. And then when I finally would come to that point of saying, okay, what is this? What is this? I don't understand. But what am I supposed to learn? And to let this pain take its course, which often would feel like I was being broken open, And in the middle of being broken open would be like, I'm going to be breaking in a million pieces. like that kind of crying, that kind of sobbing, that kind of like, I can't take this. I absolutely cannot deal with this. And when I'm like, okay, what is the other, what else? Okay. And then I remember this metaphor. Khalil Gibran will say something like, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And when I think of that, I think of a little chick in an egg. And when it's first growing, it's beautiful, just like a little baby in the womb, it's nice and comfy. And toward the end, the baby's pretty cramped, the mother is pretty, it's not a comfortable situation for neither, But I imagine if the baby had any consciousness like we do when we're older, and we're projecting, obviously, because I think the baby's just in primordial awareness and not thinking any of this. But imagine, as an older person, you're like, oh God, no, the world is gonna split apart. This is crazy. You hear the crack of the shell. Oh no. And then when the shell opens and breaks, there's a whole other world that you never imagined. And that's happened to me now several times. And each time I fight when I fight when that pain comes. I'm not willing to break open at all. But that's one of the things she talks about. Actually, the first preparation she had was to have the right attitude toward life, to be willing to face whatever comes, and to be open to that. I'm gonna keep opening it up just because after the last retreat, my left brain is not all that good, and my memory is like, So I'm just gonna let myself be reminded by the things that I've marked on. So the second preparation she was talking about was bringing your life into harmony with the laws that govern the universe. And it's so funny, we don't usually argue with gravity too much. We do expect that, unless you're really completely deluded, I don't expect that if I go on that roof that I can fly off and be fine. I'm okay with that law of the universe. I don't try to fight with it. But often we do fight with the other ones. We're like, no, life should not be this way. This is how, no, this doesn't fit with what I want. And Pilgrim separates those two things, those selves out. There's what she calls the self-centered nature, the ego, the part of us that thinks we're separate from everything else, that I'm a separate being and that what I need and want is more important than what you need and want. Or sometimes it flip-flops where, when you are somebody who wants to serve the world, then you feel, you might put everybody else's needs first and you ignore yours. And neither one of them is the higher centered, or what she called the God centered, or what in Buddhism we might call, the awakened self, or in Taoist is living according to the flow. So when we live in accordance with the laws of nature, where in Taoism I think they would say you're living according to the Tao, to the flow, to what is. So an accepting of what is. Like I know, like often I'll have an emotion and I'll be like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel that way. And the thing is, the emotion's already here. Like fighting with it makes no sense at all. It's here. It's right here. And I may as well be with what that is and learn and see what it is. Or I may not like the temperature in the room, or I may not, and it's like, wait a minute. It's already what it is. This moment is already what it is. And when I fight, I'm missing my life. I am just struggling. And so the self-centered nature is the one that struggles. And this all comes from Peace Pilgrim too. It's like when the self-centered nature uses your mind, your body, your emotions, there's always a struggle. But when the awakened self or the God-centered nature, then there's a flow. And it's just like that. Just keeps moving. There's no struggle. There's no fight. And so you know when you're in that, when there's peace, and when you're not peaceful, you know you're in a self-centered nature. It's pretty simple. Not easy, but it's simple. So, oh yeah, I already did that. So for her, it's so amazing. She said that at a certain point in her life, the moment she knew a lot, because it takes some time sometimes to discover what is the truth, the insights that come. We might be confused for quite a while about what are these laws. But once she knew them, at a certain point when she had awakened enough, she didn't fight anymore. She knew, like, okay, I need to follow this. This is it. And she'd just go ahead in that. And I think the further along, she talks about that too, is that, in the beginning, people who don't know, and therefore don't live in accordance with the law, they suffer, but not that much. But if you know, and at a certain point you've been given insight, and you don't live according to that, you begin to suffer greatly. And I don't know if some of you have experienced that already, is that the more further you're on the path, it seems like you can't go off course as much before you feel the consequences. It's like it keeps pushing you back to where you're in the flow. And you can be upset with that, or you can be really happy because now you don't wander forever and ever anymore, because you get a consequence pretty quickly, and it's like, oh, it's pushing you. No, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work, and you can come back. And so, in a way, there's gratitude for that now. It's even though, like, when I'm off course, it's so painful. It's such a stark contrast now. But anyway, so that's the second preparation, is to begin to live in accordance with what we know is the truth, to no longer fight that anymore, to begin to just do what we know is the good thing to do. And another teacher of mine, Patricia Sun, says, she's like, our left brain can say, oh, this is right, this is good, and this is bad. And that's like, maybe a more lower centered way of looking at the world. It's not about right and wrong in that sense, which is a very black and white kind of thinking. It's about what is the good thing to do in this situation, which is very, it's not a static thing at all. It's very alive. It's very juicy. And it takes being present and very alert to the moment to know what is the good thing to do. It's not like a scripted thing. It's not something that you will know ahead of time. It's really being there and being present with what is. And so there's something really beautiful about that. It's sort of like when, I've not been a rock climber, but maybe I should take an example of my own life. Like dancing for me, like there's some dances I don't know, but I know how to follow. I'm a Latin dancer because I came from South America. And there's, whenever you have a new partner, you don't know how they do the steps exactly. And you can fight and say, no, this is how the dance is supposed to be. Or you can really feel, and when you're present in each moment, there's a way where you can feel almost like a split second ahead of time what the move's going to be, because you can feel the impulse in the other person's body. And then you move in accordance with that, and the dance becomes this amazing, beautiful thing versus the struggle between two people, like, no, this is the right way. No, that's the right way. And it's just like becomes this awkward thing when people dance that way. But when you allow yourself to feel what's happening, it's like, it's the most exhilarating thing. And I think it's the same thing with a flock of birds. They don't argue like, no, you should move over a few inches. Oh God, you're not giving me enough space. Or, they feel each other. And when the person, the one in front probably gets tired and moves over, and then someone takes over, they do what needs to be done. Nobody's like, oh God, my ego, you've been in the lead too many times, and why don't you let me be there? They're not not doing that. They're just flying. um, so, so the third preparation, that one, Soryu talked about at length last time. It's about finding your vow. And I have many ideas about it, and I feel I can sense where my vow is, but not in the ultimate way that Pilgrim already knew, where she just went for it. And there was nothing else. That was it. That was her life. It was one pointed, and she just straight. I still have like little side things, and I feel like Soryu is way more boom, there. So I'm gonna let that one be his one. The fourth preparation is the simplification of life, and I feel I'm in the middle of that. When I took the step to go to CML, it was a huge step, and I'm not done because I still have possessions outside of CML. There's some people at CML that really everything they own is there, and I'm so admiring of them, and I love their freedom. And I was a mother with 2 children, and so I still have a home, and I still have, my mother passed away, and I still have some of the sentimentals. There's so much stuff still. But the thing that did get simple once I accepted that that's what my next step was supposed to be. I remember I longed for my life. I remember the first time I went to a Thich Nhat Hanh retreat. The monastics were doing. They were preparing a place in the world that was so beautiful. So beautiful. So safe. And I don't mean physical safety, but safe for the soul, for what is real inside of us to reveal itself. And I remember the first time I left, where there was just tears streaming down my eyes. And we had to leave. Thank you for holding this space, for letting me know that this is possible to live, not just be an idea. It's possible to live this life. And and I had this dream. In this dream, and we're about to go off a bridge, and I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? And there's water beneath. And I'm like, we're not gonna be able to breathe. And he's like, so? And I'm like, oh. And I could feel my body relax. It would be all right. And then partly in the rest of the dream, I was on the top of a waterfall. And he's like, jump. And I'm like, I knew I had to jump. I don't know if I'm gonna jump. And I'm like, oh God, oh God. And then I was like, that I was gonna jump. And what does that? I'm gonna let go of the self-centered way of living. The way, I'm not completely there. There's so many moments in my life that I'm like, I choose to take the fruit that's much more beautiful than the rest in the bowl and leave the ones that are more old for the rest of the monastics. So many moments, where, there's so many little things that I'm not, I choose to do that which, and it's easy. I want to find an example, but I'm gonna wait, it'll come to me. But what it was is that I had sensed this thing from when I was very little. I had a very hard life as a child. were many moments that I wanted to die, even when I was very young, or that I believed I might go crazy. And then I read this book, I think I was 8, by, it was about the Holocaust. My grandfather was Jewish, and there were many books like that in my household. And these Christian women who had gone in the concentration camp. And there was this 2 sisters who had been devout Christians, but in a really beautiful way, not in the dogmatic fundamentalist way that's very literal, but in a way where they had dedicated their life to doing good for the world. And they had been part of Jewish people get to safety, and that's why they had been brought to the concentration camp. And when you read about the conditions and how painful and how humiliating and how horrible, I remember reading that. These women were facing it with forgive their guards and still able to have compassion. And I remember reading that, and I remember something in me knew that the suffering that I had as a child was preparing me for something that somebody else had done. That was so amazing. And so I wondered how to bring that today. And then when I was driving on here, I was listening to this program by NPR, This American Life. And it was about these brownie Girl Scout girls and how, you know, people like to make fun of them because they're always trying to be positive and singing at all times. This was the British. And this woman reading this during the World War II. This was in Japan. Actually, these were Westerners who had been living in China. And there were these girls that had been living in a boarding school with these teachers. And they had been brought immediately when the bomb had been, the nuclear bomb had been dropped. The next day, they were brought. The teachers had heard about what happened, the rape of Nanking, I guess. So they knew what could happen, how everybody, and they were not ignorant. But it's so interesting, whoever the narrator was, I forget his name, he said, they did the only sensible thing. They brought their little brownie badges that they could earn, and they would sing these songs. You know, of course, she says, no, we didn't kid ourselves. We saw the people with the weapons. We knew we were in dire circumstances, but yet this beauty that these teachers created, she says, they allowed us to still be children in this concentration camp. And they would sing these amazing songs. And that's one of the things in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition they do too. They sing all these songs that help you feel, you know, especially when you come from a trauma history, that kind of same safety, that same kind of love that is inherent in all of us. Even though when you look at the world, you know, there's easy when we look at the news to see all the whole so much pain and suffering going on right now. It's so easy to get lost in that. It's so easy. But to also know that this is real, that this beauty that's inside maybe is even more real than that. So, and it's like that. When you hear that, then it's a real testing of that. That maybe when people can do that in the face of that incredible horror, that this is really real, really true. Yeah. So the simplification of life, I don't know how it brought me to that, but I think in order to fill that emptiness, that hole, and when we begin to trust that love inside, we begin to see we don't need these things. and not that important. They're actually really not important, you know. So she had all these preparations she did, and she said, you know, you don't have to do them in order. She says, you start, and I love that permission that you, the other thing she said about that, which I just loved, so maybe that, yeah, during the preparation period, she says, I wasn't fully identifying with the real me. I was just learning. I was very forgiving toward others. That was no problem. So she had learned to be extremely forgiving to what other people were doing. But I was very unforgiving toward myself. If I did something that wasn't the highest, and then one day I was combing my hair at the mirror, I looked at myself. You vain thing. Why do you think you know better when you forgive everyone else for not knowing better? You're not any better than they are. And so she could see that when she was unforgiving to herself, that it was still ego. That we need to be very kind. The kind of kindness she gives to other people. If you're not kind like that to yourself, it's not going to work. And she said, like, when she finally learned to be kind to herself like that, that's when her spiritual growth really took off. Because saying I'm not good enough, I can't do this path, I'm just not beautiful enough, I'm not this enough, not that enough, I am not worthy of this, I can't do this. That's a lot of energy. That gets freed up. Wow, you know, that's where you just take off. And I've had moments like that. And it's true. It's like, wow, it's amazing. And yes, and then I go back. Let's see. And I will be very forgiving to myself for when I go back too, you know, because I'm in process. Um, treating your body like the temple of the soul, that's my word of it. And each person has their path in that, and many people do that one last. But it's like being good to the body, not. And you know, but the Buddha spoke about that too. He for a while there was being an ascetic and really hurt his body, and that's not ultimately the way either. You know, some of us indulge or what we want too much, and we maybe eat too much, drink too much things, and that's very painful and hurtful to the body. And then some of us go the other way and we deny ourselves too much. And so it's finding what is good for our body now. The thought one, and that one is really hard because you have to know what you're thinking, and that's where meditation really comes in. There's so much that we're doing. And then it's so easy that when we notice the negative thoughts, to fight it with more negative thoughts. You know, that's so easy to do. Like, oh God, I shouldn't be thinking that. One thing I want to say time that I'm speaking or doing the meditative voice is very soothing and relaxing for many people, and so it can put people to sleep a little bit. So if you feel that's happening and you don't want to sleep, and of course, if you feel you need to sleep, go for it, because I feel like some of this goes to the subconscious anyway. You know, like just being, I think sometimes in this tradition we fight sleeping so hard. And for me, when I went to my first yoga class and I did Shavasana, I actually fell asleep for a few moments. And the teacher was so permissive, and she's like, oh, if you need to fall asleep, that must mean your body needs that. And for me, that was a huge step. Because of my trauma, I usually could not fall asleep. When I went to sleep, I stayed up in most situations. And the fact that I fell asleep there for a few moments was actually the most amazing thing. So I think we need to be very kind with ourselves, that we know that sometimes it is the right moment to fall asleep. And there can be an amazing little relaxation that happens when we fall asleep. That is just the right amount of letting go. And then when we come to, we can hear what's there in the room. So thinking, and she says negative thinking, if we knew the power of a negative thought, we would never think one again. And so we don't want to hurt ourselves with it. Notice a negative thought, to be very kind to that negative thought. To really, sometimes I just imagine myself as a little child saying something really mean sometimes, as little kids can do. I'm just like, oh honey, no, this child, this child. Give them insight into how the other child is just like them, and they're like, oh, and they're so. My children, when they were growing up, when I would be kind like that with them about those mean thoughts, they were just so receptive. Children are just so, and I think we don't have to be mean to our negative thoughts. We really can be very kind. That it's really, we want to be good, actually. So the other one is the one of desire. I'm going to let that one, there's a lot. Motives, I would say most of us have mixed motive. Don't get too caught up in if your motive isn't completely pure, I think. Go with the part of your motive that is pure. And when you go with that, that will strengthen, and that will strengthen, and that will strengthen. And the other will start falling away. Hard. I mean, obviously, if you notice that you're doing something for completely selfish reasons, it's complete greed. I think very few people in this room are probably that way. I don't think you would be here if that's who you are, but maybe you have a moment here or that. Just drop that one. But if there is something that's mixed motive, then go for it. Notice that there's a part of you. And for instance, I wanted to get a bread maker. We had a friend thing. And a friend fund where we could give to each other or something. And I wanted to get a bread maker. Well, part of that's very selfish. I love bread. But another part was really selfless too. So for the selfish part, and to sort of know that there was some really good motivation in that as well, Yeah. So the relinquishments. I'm going a little longer because and then we'll go to the next. The relinquishment of feeling separate. Well, how do you do that? I think that one, I don't know, maybe it's not true for you guys.
I'm sorry, was it relinquishment
of feeling separate. Okay. Hard not to feel separate. I can't, like something hit over the head, I don't necessarily feel the pain in my head. It's pretty easy to not think I'm you. So that one I think is pretty hard unless you come into the world for the kind of childhood I had, which was so painful that in some way, for my safety, I had to very much tune into my caregivers and know almost at all moments desire to not be hurt. But because of that, I was able to feel, when I saw anything being hurt, it was almost like it was me being hurt. So some of us don't have that. And so it's going to be a little more work to to overcome that. I have to go through what I had to go through. But to maybe let yourself you know, stay with that kind of pain a little longer if you don't have that kind of empathy. That's one of the things you can. But I also learned to shut it down, because I think if I had stayed that open, I think without the tools to deal with it, it would have destroyed me, you know. Let me say what she's saying about it. And you are that separate self, you judge everything, and you judge everything according to that. And so when you begin to learn to live from the non-self-centered self, you do what's good for the whole versus what I want and what's good for me. And it becomes pretty natural. Until you do that, it's going to be hard. It's going to feel like sacrifice. When that switches, and again, like I go back and forth. I have moments where I'm totally not in the self-centered self, and it's so easy to give seem to be personal needs. And then there's times where I'm very much in the self-centered self, and it feels like a huge sacrifice to give that up, you know? Okay, the one I really wanted to talk about is the relinquishment of all attachments. That's the hardest for me. That's the hardest for me, and it may not be for you. No one is truly free from people. And even as I read that, it feels so hard, because that's been my primary. I was born, who knows, you know, maybe take it with a grain of salt. But my astrological sign is Cancer, and we grab onto things. We hold on, you know, and I'm not just things, but to people. And for me, because I felt like I received so little love in my early childhood, I had this dream that I would have this relationship that would fix me. That, you know? And so I and think that would be my salvation. And I just couldn't get it. I mean, there were so many lessons in life that seemed easy that other people don't seem to get. And I was just like, of course we shouldn't have war. Profession that hurts, you know, those things were easy for me. That would hurt, you know, the planet or other people. For me, I would rather be poor than have such a profession. It was very simple. That was not a lot of thought into that. That was very easy for me. But the relationship thing that over and over, yeah, to the point where at some point I feel like I probably even put my children in harm's way just because I wanted a relationship so bad. A moment where I went to asking the universe, whatever you want to call it, God, Krishna, Allah, God, Jesus, you know, whatever you want to call it, the flow, whatever it is, the higher self, saying, okay, I'm obviously, I don't know, I make the wrong choice every time you give me the opportunity, every time. I don't know. And I began to see that within that longing itself for love, that longing itself was God. That it wasn't something outside myself. Already it was this. But realized that I was the love I was longing for. It was just like the most amazing shift. And it was just like, I had never needed, like, it's not that I would throw it away if there was a partner that came my way that it hit me over the head like this person I'm supposed to be with. I would not be like, okay, no, I need to be with that relationship, go away from me. Like, sense of longing or needing, and grace, and there's no regret, there's no another, it's just joy. It's just joy, and that was most amazing. It needs to be your path. But I imagine that if I do end up, if a relationship is my path, which I don't know, I'm not supposed to have a relationship in that way, and I'm totally okay with that. But if it is, that I imagine that relationship will be so much better, because I will not try to make that person be who I need them or want them to be or expect they should be. That I can let them be who they are and to follow their highest self. So, and that was a really beautiful gift. So, I think it's time for practice. I think we're going to go to walking, but I will also want to give a little bit about posture, because Sori has been talking a lot about posture. So as I'm saying this, you can choose to stand or sit, but it's more from my yoga background. And again, take what you like, leave the rest. Start with sitting. So first of all, maybe wiggle yourself around so that you really can feel maybe your feet on the ground. If you don't have your feet on the ground, maybe you want to have a cushion or whatever you want, or stand, but really feel the earth beneath you. And then there's a sense of the skin, the flesh, that sometimes we tighten against the earth. And maybe, maybe exaggerate that, like maybe tighten wherever your muscles are that are against the earth, your feet, tighten it for a moment, take a deep breath in. And when you exhale, let it go. And then see that when you let go, that the body really is supported by the earth beneath. So you're allowing that support. You're allowing yourself to sink in. And then see if you like, I should maybe wiggle around, see if you can feel your sits bones, where it is. And some of us overarch to the front too much, like this. And that means we're like, oh God, we don't trust, we're going. And some of us slouch too much, we're like, oh God, forget life, And it's like, so find that place, not like you're arching too much. It's heavy, almost like there's something pulling you on the tailbone. And you let that tailbone just sink in, be grounded. Sometimes I like to imagine that it's just like a beautiful, or a string or a cord or an umbilical cord to the center of the earth, whatever appeals to you, if you like to visualize things. And if you don't like to visualize things, just let that go. But all the way to the core of the earth, and that I am connected. Don't have to worry with Mother Earth. And then at the opposite end, the crown of the head, which is somewhat toward the back of the head here, it's completely in alignment with the whole spine, where if you imagine with cranium, you may even like take your hair in your head, take it and then pull a little bit on that and feel like you're being pulled up. And then imagine maybe heaven has a gravity as well, that you're being lifted, that your spine is a beautiful, long fluid. It's not like a stick, rigid. It's maybe more like a plant, beautiful and flexible and soft. You allow that And at the same time, you're being pulled up there. And usually what happens then is that the chin or the jaw, it just relaxes because you're being lifted. You don't have to hold on anymore. Also, the ribs often just soften too. You don't have to your rib cage is allowed to just release because the spine is being lifted by something higher than yourself. And so sometimes it helps that even if that string that's at the top of your head or that lifting, you could see it as a string again, or you could see it as yet another star, the sun, another star in the heavens, and just allow it to pull you up. And then noticing the breath. If you're really full to notice the breath, the nose, so at the ends of the nostrils. Feeling the air flow in as you breathe in and out as you breathe out. A lot of effort, and like I need to feel every little breath every second. It's just a delighting in the sense of the flow of the air and getting curious about it. Perhaps you notice that it's a little warmer. And you may notice sometimes that parts of the body begin to tighten up again. Is that a habit of yours? And maybe let it go again, huh? Feel that beautiful pulling pulled up and the tailbone being pulled down. If you're more on the anxious side, beginning to bring awareness of the breath down, or even if you're just curious and you want to explore the breath in different parts of the body. Perhaps you can notice what happens to the spaces between the ribs as you breathe in and breathe out. You may notice how they begin. There's a little more tension. As you breathe out, how they soften. And how something releases, maybe. Notice what happens for you. The words I'm saying may not exactly fit for you. What happens for you with the in-breath and out-breath in those spaces? Which part of perhaps you may notice that as you breathe in, the sides of the ribs flare out a little bit, and as you breathe out, it comes back towards center. Maybe you've never noticed that before, and play with that. And maybe you're noticing higher up the rib cage too, and play with that, if you like. That's, I think, what Sori is talking about, being playful with the breath. Just having fun with it, seeing what happens in the body. And you may also bring your awareness to between the shoulder blades. And so as you breathe in, you may notice that the shoulder blades move. And as you breathe out, they come back. And the shoulder blades are floating over the rib cage. And if there's too much anxiety or painful emotions, bring awareness more toward the back. If on the other hand, there's a lot of joy and love in front of the body, you may want to bring your awareness there with the breath. And it's not that we want to ignore the negative feelings, but we want to have something to hold the negative feelings with so they don't overwhelm us. So that's why I'm directing you toward strengthening that first. in your own timing, maybe you want to open your eyes just a tiny bit because I'm going to, and it feels great, allow them to be open. But otherwise, if it's sort of a little jarring, let them close again. And then let yourself take all the time you need to open your eyes. Sort of, sometimes are like butterfly wings. And letting the light come in and then maybe close. And giving your eyes all the time they need to get used to the light. And then perhaps actually let yourself, sometimes there's a joy in letting the light come in, or sometimes it's like, I'm not quite ready for that. And just notice what's happening. In your own timing, however you need to get up. Notice what muscles begin to engage. Feel the impulse first in your body. How do you know that you're wanting to get up? How do you know which part of the body is ready? You don't know what I'm talking about, and then getting up. And feeling the movement as you get up. And then recalibrate, feeling both feet on the earth. Maybe do the same thing, that little tightening that we did when we were sitting. And again, if you feel great already, don't. And then when you exhale, let go of that. And notice maybe the body sinks in a little deeper, allows the support. Let the tailbone be heavy, with the crown of the head. And feel that spaciousness in the middle of the body, the middle of the torso. And from there, see which leg wants to move forward. Maybe you want to go back and like finding the higher self's desire to move. And don't think too much about that because otherwise we'll never move. And if you just sort of, and then let yourself move at whatever speed feels right now. You can use this whole room. You could even use outside. We're going to be walking for Peace Pilgrim, where you're just walking, not to get anywhere, but to allow answers to come to you. At each moment, this is it. This is the moment. This is right. Let yourself delight in the beauties of nature. She did that too in our walks. So you don't have to not see a beautiful flower when you walk outside, or not feel the sunlight because you're concentrating on something else. If something beautiful pulls your awareness, let yourself be with it. If something not so beautiful pulls your awareness, let yourself be. And maybe you will. And as you're coming back in, continuing with your practice, anytime you are in the present moment, you're in this moment, you're not actually waiting, you're just here. Feeling your feet, your breath, your bottom in the chair. Maybe that lengthening of the spine again. So as you come in, just still practicing, finding your seat, feeling the muscles as they move to sit down. Keep an awareness with each movement. And notice when you lose awareness with each moment. No problem. The moment you have awareness, you're meditating. So that's that. Feeling the settling in, feeling the effects of having been outside, walking. What is it like in the body now? Maybe there's more energy. Maybe there's less settledness. Maybe it's actually more settled. Just notice what it's like right now. And just feeling whatever alignment that you felt from the work we did earlier. Seeing if you notice that or how it's different now. I forgot to ring the bell when we first started. But I'll ring it now. So I'm opening it up, or we usually open it up at this point for any comments, questions, thoughts. Yeah. And reports too, what that was like. What is it like right now? And
the posture exercise and the meditation, that was really helpful for me. A lot of times I feel like we focus on kind of rooting up through our spine, but kind of really rooting down through my tailbone. I really felt a lot more, I just felt everything relax and just more weighted on the ground, but then a lot less effort to hold myself up too. So it felt really great. And then I really enjoyed hearing you talk about Pilgrim and the story and really how much it meant to you and changed your life. And I haven't read it myself, but just hearing you talk about it really made me want to read it. Yeah, thank you.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I feel so much joy in what you experienced in the body. This is so great, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that report.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed an interesting parallel because I don't know your name and I don't know Peace Pilgrim's name.
Ah.
And so I just thought, like, in addition to everything else, I thought, well, I'd like to know your name. And then I thought, but in a way, it's really interesting to encounter someone as a human being without those identifiers that we are always relying on. And that's one of the things that really stood out to me about reading about her life.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. This makes me so happy that I didn't say my name.
It must be wonderful.
Yeah, because I forgot. And it really isn't important.
I don't know how I feel that I've gotten to know somebody that well without knowing their name.
Wow, we need labels. Do you want to know it now?
I'd love to know.
Okay. My name is Catherine Kelly, and it really comes from my father's line. He was Scottish-Irish from the United States. They came through Nova Scotia, and his mother's name was Catherine, and his father's name was Kelly, and so I became Catherine Kelly. So the name completely leaves out my mother's ancestry, which is from South America, but there it is. And who knows what it'll be once I'm completely enlightened. I don't know. I'll have to take a name too. I won't have to. I imagine I will shift to, who knows? Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. I love what you said about that too. maybe the non-attachment, that you experienced that initially there was like, wait a minute, you should say your name, or, I don't know how you experienced it, but that some part of you was able to just completely let it go and then feel that parallel. And what was that like for you?
Well, it was nice in a way because I think I wish that I had heard about Peace Pilgrim when I was much younger. And so in a way, it was like connecting with her, but it was also like connecting with you in the same way she must have with other people.
Wow, it's really profound. Wow. And what do you notice right now? Like, you seem very light.
Well, I am happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like sunshine and rain at the same time, right? Special moment. Yeah. It takes a lot of openness to experience those both at the same time. Yeah, it's really big. You would give yourself acknowledgement if you allow that. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be an ego pat on the back, but just to like, wow, this is happening. Yeah, 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 good, nice.
I just wanted to share a little something. First of all, I'm new to Peace Pilgrim, only just been since it started up here.
Yeah,
And I got a book and I've been reading it. And I love that it's kind of like her journey is like, it's like homegrown, her own variety. And it doesn't really, it doesn't have all of the, the markings of a spiritual person on a journey that might have.
right,
Uh,
right.
and it has kind of flavor, homegrown flavor to it that I really, really like.
Mhm.
Anyways, a friend of mine is dying and he's at the respite house. And I went to visit him, Carolyn, and another friend. And he has had, he's not that old, I think he's 69 or 70, but he has had everything taken away from him, including bodily function. He had a really, like a bottom with all kinds of physical things happening. And then he found himself at this peaceful place at the respite house, with birds outside, and it was pretty nice there. And, he was sharing what was going on with him and what his life was like. And the guy wept and said that he had never been so happy.
Wow.
And I just, it's like reading the Peace Pilgrim, and she dropped everything,
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And, and then when she got there, but they kept falling back, then she had to, even drop more, right?
yeah,
She just kept dropping,
yeah.
until she, and then she got the path that she was on. And once she was doing what she knew she was supposed to do, her calling, and she dropped everything else, then she was there, pretty much.
Yeah.
And this guy, physical circumstances, illness, and life, his life is, it's the same thing. He didn't voluntarily drop everything, but it all got done.
Yeah.
Even the ability to control your own bodily functions. And have somebody laying there, not knowing if they're gonna be around tomorrow or a week from now,
Yeah.
weep and tell you that they've never been so happy is unbelievable. Yeah.
What a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a gift. So I'm hoping not to wait for my deathbed. I'm already 63. But it'd be nice if I don't have to lose all my bodily functions and be dying to get there. But, whatever. I'm glad for him that got
Yeah.
really happy for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Jesus when the man next to him on a cross, when it finally happened for him in that moment, right before dying. It's never too late. And it's that, she also says when we grasp for our own peace, then it doesn't happen. But like the fact that he can do that, and partly what's going on with me too is like in the last retreat, one of my friends came to our retreat at CML, and she's dying. And I'm witnessing the same thing, that she's becoming more and more selfless. Like I offered her something for herself in the last few days that the residents could do for her, and she asked me instead to help her friend out because she's worried about her friend being without her. I was like floored, like really? And so I think people can teach us so much when they are dying. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really honored to be there and witness that.
Yeah. And the fact that you're here means that you're probably not going to wait till you're dying. Thank you so much for sharing that. On my way here, I asked, because I got really nervous all of a sudden, because I just finished reading the chapter again because I was supposed to be in the second chapter and I haven't distilled it yet to how I wanted to say it. And I just asked, I said, God, because she called it God, so I just went back to that, For a while I rebelled against that word, but I just went back to that word. I said, let me be an instrument, even if it can just be for these 2 hours. And it's a good feeling. You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think so that giving up control is a good feeling, but it really is. And I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because there's because it just feels good. And I know it probably wasn't all smooth and perfect and all that, but I know there was a lot of love in what I gave. And it wasn't I giving, it was this thing coming through. It wasn't the smaller self. And it's still coming through. I can feel it. It's like streaming, it's streaming, it's streaming. And that's that alignment too. Like if you can let that happen, the trusting of the earth. Like it's so much easier for that to stream through. Yeah. And I fall out of the state all the time. And then I wonder, how do I get back? I've been banned from paradise. Where? And it's only when I give up wanting it and say, okay, for others, that sometimes it comes back. Yeah. So I'm really curious, what are people feeling right now? What's happening? What is it like being in that piece of the planet over there? Are you taking good care of it? Is it hard to take good care of it right now? Would you like some help from the group? What's happening?
I really enjoyed your presentation today and all that you've given us. I like it because it's a very, it's very different than the practice that we often do in this community. We're very dedicated to the practice and to service and to really moving towards awakening. And so we work really, really hard, and we just, there's a sort of rigor and intensity and like deep commitment and dedication like that we often strive for, and sort of that is infused in Soryu's teachings and a lot of what we do. And so it's really nice for your presence, which is so kind and so loving and so equanimous, so open and so gentle, to bring that as a complement to this sense of, really working hard and throwing ourselves in with a deep sort of like powerful commitment. You remind us to continue to really be dedicated, but to also bring a kindness, to also bring a self-forgiveness, a gentleness, so that we can both be incredibly dedicated to service and to love, but also be relaxed and gentle and kind at the same time. And you've given us that gift, and it's been just really nice and really refreshing. So thank you.
And perhaps Soryu is like the firm earth in which I can let this flowing water flow,
Yeah.
Because if I didn't have his rigor to help me fully let go of the things I need to let go of, I might not be able to express this, And yeah. And because Peace Pilgrim had both when you read her book. Yeah. And what people said about her, that when they were around her, they felt so much joy and love, that they were forever changed in her life. And just like I think you sound like you have been changed by your friend.
Unbelievable. I opened the book up in a spot, not at the beginning, because I like doing that. And it was like, I couldn't believe how the words were impacting me. Unbelievable. Like they were just, I can't even begin to put into words, but I will say that after the first reading, I was on a little vacation celebrating my 10th wedding anniversary and attending a wedding of a young couple in New Hampshire. And we were at a little resort, and I made a commitment to not eat meat right then and there. I fell to it.
Oh.
So I mean, that's how powerful. And believe me, I'm not the kind of person to do that. I'm not the kind of person to give up eating meat. And I don't even really, it was just something about when she talked about it that struck me in such a way that it just seemed like it was just like, okay, well, this is something I have to do now. Yeah. It's amazing. But, I mean, she's not around anymore, but her words are just right there.
She did the same thing for me then.
Yeah.
And then I went back to eating meat after many years after that, like 7 or 9 years after that. And I remember I didn't like cooking anymore. And now that I'm at CML, I love cooking again. So I'm realizing that, that it is the right thing for me in this moment. Yeah. And she said at that time on earth that the most important thing is that we no longer kill one another, that maybe, at least at her time on earth, she didn't see that most people would be aware that eating meat was not the thing yet. that it might come later in the development. But she says, once you know, it's time to do it. And I'm so glad you did. It touched me so deeply. And that's another thing she stresses, that we don't just work, there are spiritual communities who only work on their own enlightenment. But that really, and that's what's so beautiful about CML, and I love how you bring that so to the forefront, Pam. But all of us do really at CML, that it is about our actions in the world. Because if you just try to become peaceful for yourself and you don't face our collective problems, which are huge right now. I mean, it's like another spiritual teacher of me is saying, this is the time the veil is lifting. The emperor has no clothes. We're seeing this so starkly and clearly all over the world right now, that it's a huge mess, right? And that it is all our responsibility to do something. And it doesn't have to be big. Really, it doesn't, because doing something that is true and good and real, and that comes authentically, is so much more, the reverberations are so much bigger. It's like all over the earth. Than doing something for recognition, because you think you ought to, but you're hurting yourself to do it, because that's not actually showing. Because that's what touched me about the monastics, when I saw their joy and they had given up so much. I was like, whoa, this is real, because they have no possessions really. Those were the ones at Tinahan, and yet they are one of the most joyous people that I've known. And so that's what brought it home to me. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Are we getting close to time? Yes, we are. Anybody still have any burning desires? Any things they want to share? Okay. All right. So, we are going to be chanting in is my timing wrong?
Still have 20 minutes.
Oh my goodness, I was thinking that I was at the very end. Oh, so we did half, see, that's when I get in this state of mind, my left brain, yeah. All right, we still have time. We could go practice some more. Why don't we do that? Yes, I'm so excited. All right, good. Wow, I thought for some reason I thought 6:30 was the end, and oh no, okay. Good. So however you want to practice, if you want to stand or sit, we might do a little bit more walking. Yeah. I'm going to try to have a little more silence during this thing, but I'll guide you in the beginning again. So in Buddhism, we can practice sitting, standing, laying down, moving, walking. And so find the position in which you can feel the support of the earth right now, and allow yourself to sink in to that support. And I forget what the name of that law is, but when you give your weight, the full weight to the earth, there's an equal and opposing force that's back at you. So know that. And then that there's an actual energy, like I remember for so many years, I just imagined that being pulled up. But there's actually an energy that pulls you up. So if for now you need to imagine it, just go for that. Imagine it. Allow it to pull you up, whether you're laying or standing up or sitting down. And feeling that space in the torso. And Soryu says, initially you want to just allow the calmness, let the breath calm. And so there's a paradox. If you were trying to force it to calm, that's not gonna work, So you're just being with your breath and noticing that as you relax into the earth, as you give your body permission to feel the support, and as you stay aware of your breath, it will begin to relax on its own. It may begin to slow down on its own. And if it doesn't, again, there's no need to make it slow down. It may begin to deepen on its own. And if it doesn't, no need to make it happen. Just having equanimity with how the breath is right now. Maybe even having gratitude that there is breath, and that this is not your last breath. That you're still here to hear the birds, to feel the support of the earth, to feel the support of the community, the church bell, whatever it is that you notice. And in being with the breath the way it is now, just feels like the most aligned thing, the good thing to do right now is stay with that. The next thing Soryu talks about is allowing the breath to energize you. And so you could force it to, or you can let it happen. And a way to let it happen is to just begin to notice the expansions a little more. So maybe you notice the expansions in your rib cage, the spaces between the ribs. Or you might notice the belly rising and falling and the skin stretching out and tightening as your belly expands and then softening. But being a little more aware. So when you let the breath calm, you would let your awareness be a little bit more with the calmness. So with the exhale. And when you want to have the energizing element of the breath, you become more aware of the in-breath, about the filling. And it's almost like you're buoyant, like maybe if you were in a bathtub and you're floating and your upper body's just held up by this breath when you breathe in. You don't have to work. It's just, all this energy by breathing in the inspiration. And if it works for you that way, wonderful. If it doesn't, if it feels a little more effortful, noticing that. And you're always welcome to just return to the calming breath by focusing a little more on the relaxation and the exhale. Sometimes when we focus on the energizing effect of the breath, you begin to notice all the space in your body. Sometimes you're actually aware of the lack of space where there's a lot of tension. Just notice what happens. And then in those spaces where there is tension, allow the breath to flow there without forcing. Just Maybe like as you imagine a river slowly beginning to carve a little more space for itself. Like letting the breath go to those places where it feels a little more constricted and just slowly allowing it to create a little more space. The next story talks about being playful. And we played with that already a little bit, sort of being curious about where do I feel the breath? I know I gave you some places maybe you could notice it, but who knows, maybe you feel it a little in your armpit, maybe right at the shoulder blade, a place you've never felt it before. And maybe you see colors as the breath spreads through the body, just allowing any silliness, any playfulness to happen. Maybe you begin to notice like it spreads like smoke even through the legs. Who knows? Like you're just allowing that young part of us that could be playful about things like breathing. That wasn't so serious always, like, am I meditating the right way? Just having fun with it a little bit. Sometimes playing, experimenting with how long you can leave the breath out, or how big you can blow up your chest, or you play with it. And you can make sounds with it even if you like. Playing doesn't mean being all quiet necessarily. Sometimes playing creates a little sound. And I know that we don't normally make a lot of sound in Zen meditation. For these few moments, if it comes out, let it come out. Maybe, yeah, just let it happen. Maybe part of your body wants to move a little bit to allow it to be playful and let that happen. Little micro movements possibly, but in a way that the awareness can still stay. Experimenting. Next, he talks about feeling the breath over the whole body. Now, that can be a concept, and so don't let it be too rigid, that concept. It's just like, let it even be just a guessing. When I inhale, does the top of my head feel slightly different than when I exhale? That's feeling it in that part of the body. It may not be an actual way, the way your breath feels in your chest. It may just be very different. My yoga teacher actually taught me saying when you inhale, the diaphragm in your head actually tightens a little bit, and when you exhale, it opens up. Or maybe I'm doing it the opposite way, but it might be good that I messed it up possibly. So that way you can feel it for yourself. What happens in the head maybe when I breathe in or breathe out? Maybe you can feel it in your toes, in your fingertips. And if you don't feel it in a certain part of your body, you could just imagine it being there. Not by forcing it, but just, I don't know, maybe it's like that little swirl before, like a beam of light, or just the softness that happens there. And then he has you come back to knowing that the breath originates in the center. He has some other associations with that, but I'm just doing it my way. So do it your way too. Your way of knowing that your breath originates in the center, even as you might be feeling it all over, even as maybe you've returned to calming breath or an energetic breath, whichever one you're with. And from here, I'll give you the option. And that for the next 10 minutes, you might want to just be seated in silence here with this practice. Or go walk around the grounds again, keeping your gaze wide and soft. Not walking with any goal in mind, but just sensing the universe, what it might be telling you through the bird sound, through that little leaf that you see, the bark of the tree, to the feel of the grass on your feet, the smell of the flower. Taking all the time you need with each step. Or letting yourself do an auto walk, letting yourself walk quite rapidly and letting the primordial of mind walk you. And we'll ring the bell again when it's time to come in. And then ringing the bell for everybody else. All right. I want you to just keep Being in the moment with your breath and your body, or however you're navigating this moment works for you. All the others come back inside you. So we have some time for maybe one or two more sharings. Questions?
Should we walk like this all the time?
Tell me a little more. How was the walk for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Way more peaceful inside than most walks.
I imagine if everybody on earth walked this way, we would never hurt the earth anymore. Seems like you agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no shoulds. It feels good, doesn't it? Don't you just want to? Yeah. It's just that we forget. Yeah. And that's okay too. We forgive ourselves for forgetting. Yeah. But then we remember we can do it again. Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, I find when I walk like that, there's so much love for the earth. Yeah. Having said that, maybe there's some ways that people have about actually helping all living beings on Earth, including the Earth, that you know about, that we can work together as a community on, or each individual, or, yeah.
Well, this week, every morning at 8, for at least half an hour, there's a gathering in Philadelphia, an interfaith gathering with people praying and meditating and chanting together to help bring peace to the city of Philadelphia during the Democratic National Convention.
Wow.
So that would be something that if other people are interested in participating, they can just do in their own way at home, just knowing that they'd be joining with people bringing peace.
You're gonna have it Skyped or anything? Is it gonna be any visual?
No, I don't think so.
Just no, is it
Yeah.
gonna
And you can know
There's
that,
a Facebook event and you can invite your friends to it. In other words, you can help share that's what people will be doing.
and what
It'll
is
be
it
every
called?
morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 8:30. And I can't remember what it's called, but if you want to be a part of it in that way, you can just connect with me quickly at the end of this. That's what we'll be leaving from
So, we as a community, we eat breakfast in silence in a meditative way at 8 o'clock, so you'll know that we'll be joining you in that way. The residents. So, anybody else?
We have a few. There's a political pizza party. Mark Woodward recently announced his retirement from the Vermont House of Representatives. He served Johnson for a total of 14 years, as well as the towns of Eden, Belvedere, Hyde Park, and Wolcott. So join us for a pizza party, where we razz or thank him for his years of service. You bring the ingredients.
Didn't that already happen?
Did that already happen?
I don't know, am I wrong?
Oh, July 23rd. You're not wrong. That already happened.
was
It's okay. There was a pizza party.
Do you have any events? centerformindfullearning.org/responsibility. Or calendar of responsibility events. Find events, put them on that calendar.
Well, speaking of things one can do, I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere that one of the best things you can do for global warming is not eat meat, because if everybody stopped, the amount of land it takes to grow the animals so that we can eat, and the amount of energy that goes into that, and all the whatever it is that escapes from the feces, methane, yeah. So, that's one thing you can do. And even if you can't do it all the time, in Tina tradition, for instance, they say, like, even if you just fast one day a week, not eating meat, it's a start. So that's one thing you can do. There's also so many, I don't know, some of us make money here. We don't too much in a residency thing, but if you do and you want to donate to organizations, if you can't do the work but you feel strongly about something and passionate, and right now you don't have the time yet to donate it in time, that's one way you can work. And then I want to ask you to find your passion in the terms of where you think you want to make the most change, where begin to move toward that vow. And if that's the case, then bring some events in that vein. You don't have to scour everything and everything that possibly could be done. That's overwhelming. But just bring something that you're passionate about. Right now, The animals is the passion for me. I'm not sure why that's happening right now, but it is. I mean, I think I've always loved animals, but I think I'm finally have the courage to face their suffering because it was too painful in the past to even look at it. It was just so painful. So that's, there's so much happening in that area. For instance, there are farmers here in Vermont that still cut the tails of cows because they think it's easier to milk the cows, and it's very painful for the cows first that it happens, but also, all those, I mean, I'm very aware of it because where we are in Johnson, there are these horrible flies that are so painful, and I have to wear a hat all the time so I don't get bitten. And those flies tend to be attracted to the cows, and so now they don't have their tail to swish them away. And so that's one thing you can, at least if you're not ready to be vegan, to commit and call Cabot and tell them, or whatever cheese she eats, saying, do you guys do that? And if you do, then I'm no longer going to buy the cheese from you. That's one thing you could do. So there's many, many things like that, but that's my passion. So that's what I brought today. And so you can just come from your passion when you bring, something that you would really like to see change. And it's just, and it may be a small thing that somebody can do, but that's a small thing you could commit to, for instance. Yeah. And we lobbied, we went, saw you and Pan, and were you there? No, a lot of us went to the State House and we lobbied for a change in that. So who knows? We'll see what happens. So I think we're already 2 minutes over time. And when do we chant again? 7:15, right?
Yeah, we usually start 10 minutes. Yeah, so we'll be chanting at 7:15. Chanting is a nice opportunity